Alright, guys. Are you ready to see a diamond, a gemstone that I and my community, as it would seem, have discovered, and I have been recommended to cover for this segment? We have discovered the stereotypical basement-dwelling, Melvin, woman-hating, anti-woke, comic book nerd, incel guy. We have found him. If you don't believe me, just watch. So this is a channel called Ranting for Vengeance, okay? His tagline is "Death to all posers." And he uses this gay-ass Imperium font. I don't know what else to call it. All I can think of as a good matching thing is just gay-ass Imperium font from Warhammer. And as you can see, he uploads some pretty bargain bin content, to be honest. He hasn't uploaded a lot, but in about a month, assuming he hasn't, like, deleted a bunch of older videos, he's managed to get up to 667 subscribers. Now, I will say, ever since this Green Lantern video, his thumbnail game's been on point. Like, can we give credit where credit is due, especially for such a small channel? These thumbnails are fucking clean. I really like that he went from, the black box and then the white text in the background for the contrast to adding a white border around the black box. It makes it look a lot more professional. I honestly might yoink that. Like, I might have Ethan yoink that for thumbnail design, because that goes pretty hard. If he watches this video, listen, all hate and disagreement aside, this is genuine advice, or I guess a genuine compliment, and advice to continue doing something you're already doing. That thumbnail text goes hard. That format, the woke shit surrounded by the white line with the black on white and red and all that, oh, it's perfect. With so few subs, it's no wonder these videos are doing as well as they are for the channel size. Ah, we've spoiled what the guy looks like. He's a bit of a Melvin, okay? He's a little bit of a Melvin, as you can see. So we're gonna go ahead and check out one of his newest videos. It's called Absolute Batman, the worst Batman ever. It's this one that we're gonna be watching from him. This is what I've been recommended to cover. Apparently, it's particularly cringe. And yes, this is what he looks like. Now listen. I am not one to body shame. I am not one to looks shame, but... Who's the... Why does this dude simultaneously look like... I'm gonna go full Joker voice here.
Now riddle me this, Batman. Why does this dude look so much like a 45-year-old man and a 16-year-old girl at the same time? How is it possible, Batman? It doesn't make any sense. This is modern woke society.
That is literally... Have you ever heard the term new male? I am only making these insults because this motherfucker is an anti-woke grifter, okay? Listen. Have you ever heard the term new male? Google it. It's a conservative insult for, like, it's the new soy boy term. This motherfucker is a new male, okay? This motherfucker is the phenotype that... Not that I ever bullied anyone in my whole life, but hypothetically, I would have stuffed in a locker in high school, dude. What the fuck? Like... Alright, now that we've gotten past the elephant in the room, let's get into the video. Absolute Batman, the worst Batman ever. Batman goes woke.
So DC has decided to reinvent Batman in the brand new series, Absolute Batman. Many people are saying it's amazing, it's a breath of fresh air.
This shit is gas, man. Wrong. This shit is gas. Like, is this what DC meant when they said DC all in?
I'm kind of retarded.
Now, I'm not a big comic book guy, right? I'm not reading comics, I'm not reading, like, the Batman comics. I'm not even a DC dude, right? But this gives me the impression immediately that Batman fans really like this new Batman run. So, at least from my perspective, this seems to be a conservative anti-woke grifter missing the memo that you're supposed to attack and call woke things that people in large numbers already hate for unrelated reasons. If it was dog shit, then you would have every reason to jump on it and call it woke, but I'm not really getting the vibe that it's dog shit if fans are apparently calling it Kino, you know? It seems to be pretty good. So you're targeting something that's well-liked, not the best play.
I'm here to tell you if that's the truth. Spoiler alert, it's not at all. It's literally one of the worst takes on Batman ever. Quick disclaimer before I start. This isn't some rage bait video. I'm not lying to get your attention. I'm telling you my opinion, which I believe is the truth. That this, A, is not
Okay. Alright. So right off the bat, okay. To be clear, I know that you know that you're full of shit. If this guy wants to try to make a response or whatever, he'll pretend like he believes all this stuff, I'm sure. Or if he gets enough backlash for this take, he'll probably immediately pretend like he never really cared. He's immediately broken the grifter rule here by acknowledging the fact that people use rage at all to get clicks. You're not supposed to acknowledge the entire grift that your entire community and ilk profit from. It's supposed to be silently and unspokenly unacknowledged. 1. 2, you've ruined your ability now for, if this video gets dunked on, to in response say, oh, well, I never really cared, and then to just post like the ad revenue the video made, and to say, joke's on you guys, I made money off of this, I never really cared, which is what the quartering and every other grifter like this does when they actually get pushback for their takes. They immediately say, I never really cared anyway, I'm just grifting, look how much money I made. Haha. You know, so like, he's kind of precluded himself from being able to go down that route with this line that this is his real, true opinion. So if people don't like it and he gets shit, he's got to own it. He can't say, well, just kidding.
attention. I'm telling you my opinion, which I believe is the truth, that this, A, is not Batman, and B, is an absolute dumpster fire. This comic is a disgrace to creators like Frank Miller, Jeff Loeb. This isn't the Batman they envisioned. I know it's a different take on the character, but what this does ruins the character entirely. So this comic strives to reinvent the...
So we're already... Like, you don't even have to be a Batman fan. You just can be a fan of any media. And when you hear this rhetoric, this is entirely meant to appeal. Like, the first half of it is meant to say, remember how much you like Batman? Are you a Batman fan? Do you love Batman? Remember all the old Batman stuff that you like. Well, now they're disgracing it. They're disgracing it. And it's like, okay, no. What's actually happened here is Batman is a massive IP. Lots of people get their turn at the wheel to make their own runs of the character with different takes of the character, and a lot of them are going to be very different from each other. This particular take's actually pretty popular, apparently, but there's nothing weird or different about this. If you're somebody who has this tendency to get mad about, like, a new thing that is part of an IP you like to come out, and when it's in any way different, you see it as, like, a disgrace or as, like, an attack on the original thing, it's like, seriously? How can you consider anything this serious? This shit doesn't matter. Like, grow up. I'm not talking to the YouTuber here because he knows. He's just trying to get into the anti-woke grift. I'm talking to the viewers who actually fall for this stuff. You are having your anger that you shouldn't even be angry over stuff like this in the first place, but the fact the anger is there is what's being monetized off of. You're being milked. You are literally being milked.
World of Batman in every way possible. What if a bodybuilder engineer dude became Batman? Yeah, that's not badass. I'm sorry. I don't find that badass.
Wait, what? Isaac Clarke of Dead Space? Excuse me? An engineer becoming a superhero isn't badass? Excuse me, the biggest badass of all time in all of horror is Isaac Clarke, a dude who is a zero combat, zero military training engineer who ends up in, like, the most horrific scenario imaginable, and he has nothing but mining equipment and construction tools at his disposal, and he uses them to create weapons that allow him to slaughter his way through enemies that wiped out the military. Because as it turns out, being an engineer who knows how to hack and slash and cut is very valuable in dealing with space zombies in desperate need of dismemberment to kill them. Why would you use engineer as an example when the story arc he just referred to is literally one-to-one Isaac Clarke's story arc, one of the most unanimously agreed upon badasses in all of horror gaming media? Wow. This is literally just monopolizing off of people's fear of any form of change, mind you. That's what this is. And it's not even change in the real world. It's change in people's comic books. Aren't you afraid that new comics might be different? The West has fallen. Billions must die. Or as this guy's tagline goes on his channel banner, death to all posers. Yeah. Remember, this dude's channel banner in red is death to all posers. Good God, dude.
I don't find that different, unique, entertaining. It's just cringy. There's people all across the internet saying that this comic is badass. It's awesome. This comic literally reads like those edgy 90s comics that every single person makes fun of. It's like a 12-year-old...
Is bro a Spawn hater? I'm sorry, 90s Spawn comics go crazy. What are you talking about? That shit was awesome. It was literally era-defining. This guy is such a oh my God, he's just yapping, bro. He's just yapping.
...world's fan fiction of Batman.
Actual poser, though.
Man, this comic has everything. It has horrible, edgy dialogue. It has some pretty gay character designs. And if you can
Hold on.
Hold on. Horrible, edgy dialogue.
I hate this fucking town.
It has some pretty gay character designs.
Fellas, is it gay to be a dude literally giving a flower to a woman? Is it gay to be a dude in a jacket with, like, relatively short hair, no piercings or tattoos, and with natural dark hair color to give a flower to a woman? Fellas, is that gay? Like, what? Is there some sector of the Batman community that has some reason to hate this comic that he's trying to monetize off of here? Like, what is going on? Hold on, let's read the comments and see what the response was. Wow, an L take. Absolutely the worst take ever. This has to be rage bait. When I look at you, the one thing that does not come to mind is this is someone who knows what badass is. It must be so sad to live this way. Nice sarcasm. I really can't tell if this is a sarcasm channel or just a grifter channel. Dude, I don't think you know what woke is, and sure as hell don't think you know what badass is. Yeah, so basically every comment is ripping this guy a new one. That makes sense. This is genuinely embarrassing. He's absolutely face planted this hard.
And if you can believe it, they managed to race swap another Redhead from comic books. They managed to jump in there and
I love this. Thank you so much, sir. You've given me, and you're a redhead too, so you feel like you're being oppressed. Okay, so for those that don't know, conservatives idealize two types of women, okay? Blonde white women with blue eyes are obviously like their peak Aryan goddesses that they all want to have as their barefoot pregnant housewives. But if they can't have that, they will settle for a pale, blue-eyed redhead. Those are like the two Nazi fetish archetypes of women, okay? And there has been, I think it's probably coincidence, but it's somewhat noticeable. There has been a bit of a trend in some classic pale-ass white redhead characters getting cast as, or just race swapped in new iterations of the media as black women. And obviously, one of the most iconic examples is, like, assuming MJ in the new, like, Marvel, like, movies is meant to even be Mary Jane, and she very well might not even be Mary Jane. She might just be MJ. Like, completely different character that's just original to the story. But people assume that she's supposed to be Mary Jane because she is filling that role pretty well, and she goes by MJ. And she's played by Zendaya, who is not a white redhead, that's for sure. So they have a conspiracy theory Okay? She's called Michelle Jones. Yeah, okay. That's why I think that there's a really good chance that this idea isn't even based in reality, and that there's a very good chance that the foundational claim of, like, Mary Jane being race swapped might not even be true, and MJ might be one of those classic cases of, like, the MCU, like, edging fans on certain comic things actually being brought into the movies. Like, oh, is this really Mary? Nah, but real Mary Jane shows up later and she's going to be comic accurate, right? That could very well end up happening, and it could be interesting. But regardless, that is the perception of it. And so the conservatives have started a conspiracy that redhead women are being replaced by the woke agenda. And so if they can find a situation where a character that in any iteration was a redheaded woman has been made into a non-redheaded woman, or especially a black woman, well, there you go. They've got something to complain about. Unfortunately, it seems like this dude targeted something too well received and popular to really get any support with his grift here.
And turned them black. So after reading Absolute Batman, I think we can all agree that Scott Snyder can't really write comic books, correct? And this is a fact, proven with every single page of this garbage. There's an abundance of absolutely insane creative decisions happening here. Who, in their right mind, greenlit Alfred's look? What is the haircut? What?
He said black with so much venom. Yeah, my favorite thing ever is seeing how much hatred conservatives can say the word black with. Another one of my favorite, I don't know if, I should show this video. It's a really good video where it's a dude trying to get conservatives who are anti-BLM to stop saying BLM and to instead say they don't agree with Black Lives Matter. Because they always say BLM. They never say, I hate Black Lives Matter. They always say, I hate BLM. BLM is a terrorist organization. And so it's just the dude trolling conservatives, trying to trick them into saying Black Lives Matter instead of BLM, and they just refuse to do it. It's a really funny video.
That is the beard. Why is he an MI6 mercenary with like grenade launchers and sniper rifles? This is straight up cringe, I'm sorry. So I thought Alfred was bad enough.
Didn't Alfred, like, in large part train Batman in a ton of iterations? Like, Alfred's supposed to be badass, but he's just kind of like a sleeper build of sorts, and he raised Batman. I'm pretty sure he taught him a fair amount of fighting, right? I'm not a big DC guy, so you guys gotta tell me if you're like DC fans in chat, but I'm sure there's like a few iterations of Batman where Alfred's a badass motherfucker. Wasn't he like ex MI6 or something? Like ex like British Special Forces? Alfred has always either been MI6 or British Army. Okay, I'm right, yeah. Alfred was always like an actual badass, I thought, yeah. Alfred being an MI6 has been hinted at for decades. Most TV/cartoon iterations outright say it. That's pretty dope.
Enough. But then we get to Bruce Wayne, the main man himself. What do you think when I say Bruce Wayne? You think the suave, charming rich guy, which in Batman Year One was originally
I mean, he doesn't have to be.
Based off of Gregory Peck. But now in this comic, they're going for something a little different. Let's just take a little glance at what they thought Bruce Wayne was. So this is the page where Bruce Wayne...
At what they thought Bruce Wayne was. I love this weird conservative implication that these are real people and not characters, and that it is sinful and even historical revisionism to have a different take on a character. Good God. Could you imagine if, like, any classic media that's an adaptation of anything released today, these people would not accept it. They literally just make all of their money off of hating any new thing, and if it becomes popular and well-liked enough, they're forced to assimilate it. Otherwise, they do their best to monetize hate for anything new, up until the very last moment that they can't.
Wayne is first introduced. We see him hitting a bag. He looks exactly like Bruce Wayne has for the last like 100 years, saying some badass Batman stuff. No fear, no pain. And then out of nowhere, this big hulking transgender comes up behind him and is like, hey bro, I think it's my turn now. And just starts blowing the punching bag across the room with his big fat arms. Now,
is the character trans? Because at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if this dude just sees like a random bulky dude character and says that's a trans character or something, or like a bulky woman character and says they're trans. They're not transgender? Yeah. Doesn't surprise me.
The character design going on here. He has the haircut of some fat emo transgender kid. And
Nah, this dude, I hope this dude gets, like, genuinely bullied for the rest of his life. I'm glad that this guy had probably the worst childhood you could imagine. You know, this kid got bullied relentlessly, and that no girl has ever so much as smiled in his direction to get him to this place. And the fact that he is this kind of person makes me glad that I know that's everything that this dude's social life has been up to this point. You know this dude is a fucking loser, bro. What the fuck, dude? This is like watching any modern movie with, like, your deranged racist uncle who sees anything and goes on a rant about how it's part of the woke agenda. Like, dude sees a haircut and says the character has a woke lesbian trans haircut or something. Like, what the fuck is this dude's obsession with seeing wokeness in everything? This is the derangement that I warn you have to avoid. You cannot let yourself fall into this, like, anti-woke brain rot content. This is where it leads every single time. If you watch that kind of shit, if you watch Critical Drinker, you are no different from this guy's fans or this guy himself.
that is Bruce Wayne. I'm not joking. That is Batman. Then we actually start getting into the backstory of Bruce Wayne. His parents weren't killed coming down that alleyway and they got mugged. No, instead he's at a zoo with his dad or something, and his dad gets shot. And the idea for Batman comes from the fact that he's in a zoo and he goes into some bat-like exhibit. I really don't know what's going on here. I don't know what was being...
Okay, awesome. So we've already gotten to the point where in order to shit on the piece of media, the conservative has to pretend like, or either admit that they, or reveal they didn't actually consume the media they're grifting off of, or B, because they cannot articulate any flaws in the media, they pretend like it's incomprehensible. They used to do this a lot with, this is a really common talking point with trans people, funnily enough, considering this guy was talking about that before. They would do this a lot. They would basically argue... Sorry, I just noticed the lights were off. They would basically argue, or at least just say, like, whenever referring to a trans person, they would just list a bunch of pronouns, like he, she, it, them, as if to emphasize and over-exaggerate how confusing it is for them to remember which pronouns they're supposed to use. Because in lieu of an argument, they just kind of imply... like one instead, like with a sort of rib instead of outright stating anything because they're too cowardly to actually make a statement. Xander Hall, his dad is a teacher, and during a school trip they were attacked and hid in the bat exhibit. Okay, so they're attacked at the zoo. They run and they hide in the bat exhibit, which is probably like a cave type situation because it's got bats in it, because that'd be a good place to hide. And that's probably where his dad ends up dying. It's probably dark and scary and freaky, and bats are there, and yeah, it's probably his backstory. It's goofy as any Batman backstory would be, but it's coherent enough.
Being smoked in the writer's room, but clearly this comic is all over the place. It's a mess. And apparently Bruce Wayne isn't some rich guy anymore. Instead, he's a working class citizen, working all these different construction jobs, learning engineering. So he's this super genius, and his mother is still alive. So there's no motive to fight that you're an orphan, your two parents were shot in front of you, and you...
Yeah, you have to have both your parents die to have any motive in life, by the way. If both your parents die, you become a superhero. If only one dies, can't become a superhero. Sorry, guys. Those are the rules.
Never stop on your crusade against crime. Instead, your dad got shot in a zoo somewhere, your mother is still alive, and now you're just working construction jobs. Is this Batman? I don't really know what's going on here. I was shocked reading it. He's walking around like an emo kid, brooding. I don't know what's going on with Batman these last few years, but people need to learn that his hair doesn't come down over his eyes, he doesn't listen to Nirvana, and he's not gay. So then...
Alright. I think we've seen enough. I just want to finish off this segment by showing you why this logic is so stupid, and why it's literally antithetical to everything nerd culture was built on. So this is Stan Lee talking about if he had been given the ability to create the DC universe.
Often ask me, which of the DC characters would I have liked to have written? And it really doesn't matter to me, because I like writing anything. I think if I had done Superman, I would have done him differently. I would have made him more vulnerable. I think the idea of being able to do anything makes you a little uninteresting. Batman is a good idea. It's interesting. The writer of Batman, the fellow who created Batman, Bob Kane, was a friend of mine, and he was a funny guy, just the opposite of me. He would go to a restaurant with me. We'd have dinner. The minute the waiter came over, "Do you know who I am? I'm Bob Kane. I created Batman. Here, I'll draw you a picture." I wanted to crawl under the table. I would never say anything like that. But he was so happy and proud of what he had done, and he was always late. Every time we have dinner with our wives, if the appointment was for 8 o'clock, he'd get there at 1:15. And we try to top each other. Joan and I would say at the next dinner, "You know what, let's be 20 minutes late. We'll show him." So we'd get there 20 minutes late, but he won. He'd be a half hour late. And we'd say, "Let's get there 3/4 of an hour late." He'd be there an hour late. I mean, I couldn't beat this guy. But anyway, there was a time about, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago when DC Comics asked me.
This is the part.
They wanted to do a series of books called "What If Stan Lee Had Created the DC Universe," or something like that. And they asked me to write Superman, Batman, the Wonder Woman, the Green Lantern, and I don't know, 10 or 12 of their books, as if I had created them. So I changed all of them around. I made Batman a black man. I made the Flash a female. I just for fun, just to make them different. I really enjoy doing it. People often ask me which of the DC...
So I want to emphasize to you guys that there was never a point in which this concept, this thing that the right has built their entire anti-woke, nerd rage on, this has never been a taboo. This has never been a bad thing. This has never been disrespectful, not even among the... Stan Lee and the creator of Batman has this been considered disrespectful or unreasonable. It's ironic that dude's tagline in his channel is "Death to all posers," when he is very clearly about as big of a poser as it gets. I'm not a comic reader, and yet I'm more familiar with the position of the creator of Batman and one of the most legendary comic and hero writers of all time from Marvel. What their positions are on this, better than these guys. But they need to monetize hate. The people who created this art were not hateful people, but enough of the fans and the consumers are hateful people that you can monetize off of their hate. And frankly, it's so depressing to see these hateful pieces of shit say Stan Lee would be rolling in his grave at Black Iron Man or whatever the fuck they complain about now. Meanwhile, Stan Lee would actually be rolling in his grave at the millions these fucking hateful pricks are making off of attributing their hate to him. It truly is disrespectful to a legendary dead man, and they pretend as though they're the ones defending his honor. These are awful, awful people. They're not just grifting pieces of shit with no shame, they're also just awful human beings. And I never want you guys to forget that. We're dealing with awful people who are absolutely willing to lie to cover up how awful they are, what their true intentions are, what they truly believe, what they think should happen to the world, what their ideas are, what they support. You can never take them at their word. You always have to think of any conversation you have with a conservative pundit from a meta perspective. Why is he saying what he just said to me? So that it can... The goal is always... The conservative pundit is always saying what they're saying to you, if it's in front of an audience, to appeal to the audience. It's always a burn or a gotcha or a setup for a gotcha. So you need to analyze everything said to you as priming up for an attack that is specifically meant to look good to the audience. And you need to recognize that and prepare for that immediately if you're ever going to do, conservative debates, right? It's all about playing to those hateful pricks in the audience. They're never actually having an honest conversation. With that said, though, if you enjoyed this segment, thought it was entertaining, educational, or enjoyable, then please consider leaving a like. Every single thumbs up on all my videos, VODs, and obviously streams goes a long way to boost my channel and the algorithm, and it really does help a lot. I really want to emphasize that I appreciate it a ton, and as do I appreciate... God, I can't speak today. I also appreciate every single comment down below as well. It actually enhances the benefit of every single like, and I also get to read what you think of the videos, so I appreciate it. Thank you for leaving comments. And if you haven't comments. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications so YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload a new video. And if you haven't already, please consider following my social medias linked down below in the description, including joining my fan Discord if you haven't already, as it's the main hub of my community and fan base. I actually host game events, call-in streams, and watch parties there at least once a week. And so if you want to make sure to be a part of all of that and not to miss any of my uploads or streams, make sure to join the Discord and have notifications on. Finally, if you want to support me directly, please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or supporting me financially through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buying merch at the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me, though, thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.